Why do high performers feel miserable even when they're winning?
It reminds me of um, there's a swing coach in Europe named Pete Cowan. He's worked with the legends and is kind of a legendary swing coach. And there's an article that he was interviewed in, and it said, people idolize my clients, and I think, but one thing that they don't realize is that I spend much of my time with miserable millionaires, and I had another, experience where there's a senior tour, Champions Tour player, and, he has an incredible story. He was a, college player, and then he went into business, and then, he got into his late 40s, and then someone on the senior tour said, "Hey, you should really think about senior tour. I think you get a spot." And he when he turned 50, he made it, and then he won, and I believe he actually won a major. But what he told me was, I've been on this tour for a couple of years, and I walk into the player dining and see all these long faces. And I'm just really concerned that that's going to be me. And I said, "Yeah, that's a very valid concern because you become like the people you associate with." And so um, there's a trap um, that people that are talented fall into. If you're smart, talented in any way, there's a real danger of falling into this. So our greatest need as humans is this love and acceptance and connection with others. Our greatest fear is rejection. And so when you're talented, you set a goal, and it's what I call the competitor's trap. You set this goal, and then you work at it, you get a result, and then you're going to process that result in your mind. And then if you got the result you wanted, the process is, oh, okay, this is great. You get a good feeling. It's a positive but temporary feeling because it's just for this one time. And then it impacts your beliefs about who you are and what's possible. Oh, maybe I can be this person that achieves these things. So you respond with another goal. So then you set another goal and a little higher goal. You work at it. Maybe you don't get the result you want. Now you process that in your mind, and you get a negative feeling. Oh, this is bad. So then it impacts your belief. Oh, maybe I can't achieve my goals, and maybe there's some frustration. So what do? You respond with another goal. And it becomes this cycle of just this endless treadmill of trying to achieve, because that's where I get my meaning in life. And this is the trap that I fell into is I just wanted to be a superstar. And I thought the best possible life was to have every guy want to be me, every girl want to be with me, and I'm going to make millions of dollars and hit home runs and be rich and famous. And what I realized, what I've always wanted, is to feel fully alive.
Mm. And so do you think that people are chasing meaning when they're trying to be more and more successful, or do you think that they're chasing something else?
Yes, they're chasing meaning and fulfillment. So we're created for fullness of life, absolute fullness of life, to feel fully alive, to live a life of deep contentment, joy, and confidence. But we live in this world where you've got to think about yourself to get around, just to survive. You've got to constantly be thinking about yourself, what you're going to eat and clothes you're going to wear and all these different things. And that constant thinking about yourself creates this self-consciousness and comparison that leads to anxiety and fear. And so self-centeredness, the constant thinking about ourselves from our point of view, creates this path towards anxiety and fear. And so because our deepest need is for love and connection, most everything that we do is to try and get that. And if you go out into the day and you don't feel that sense of love and connection, you're going to try and get it however you can. And in the book in Inner Excellence, I described these 5 ways that are kind of the most common: more possessions, achievements, looks, money, or status, the palm. This is typically how we try and get it in the Western culture. And of course, chase your tail, endless pursuit of emptiness.
And I think that like those things, some of those things are like necessary, right? Like I think it's important to be successful. I think it's important to make money. I think it's important to take care of your health and the way that you look. Like I think that stuff matters. I think the problem becomes when we take things to the extreme and we don't work on ourselves internally and we use those things almost as like false idols, right? And then we realize we don't have any real authenticity or integrity to us, and we end up miserable later in life. Like, how can people strike that balance that's so hard to strike with those things?
Yeah, that's you hit the nail on the head, these false idols. When I think of the term false idol, I think of something that we put on a pedestal that we think is gonna give us real meaning and make us feel fully alive, and it doesn't come true. It doesn't work out, and so that's what I think of as a false idol. So we all have some sort of, god, some whether it's a little g god or not, there's something that we all worship, as David Foster Wallace said so eloquently. And that's whatever you love the most. That's your God. That's your idol. And what I try to do is help people say, hey, let's pursue something that you love the most that is really, really empowering. Because what you love most is also going to be what you fear most. And that's going to control your life. And if it's not empowering, now we're just at the whim of a could be a worldwide pandemic and your life could be, shut down. You get injured and you lose your career like happened to me. And I felt like my life was over. And so, yeah, I think false idols is really the right term. And so we need to pursue something that's more meaningful and lasting than a temporary win. And that's where clarifying how you want to live and how you want to feel and the person you want to come, what the purpose is for your life. That's where we start to make some real progress.
And I think one of the struggles with that is it's hard to track things like meaning, purpose, how you're contributing to the world, if there's not like a stat on a piece of paper. Like what markers or benchmarks can people use to see if they're actually fulfilled in life, if they're actually living in with their purpose and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I think the reason why I believe inner excellence is powerful is because it's like Dick Vermeil, the legendary Eagles coach. He said, an athlete is a person first. You coach the person, then with the sport. If they're a football player, you coach the person first, then the player, tennis player, the person first, violinist, the person first. And so inner excellence is really about human optimization. And so when you understand that if you want to be great at anything, there's so much out of your control. You have to work on developing yourself, your inner world. And when I say inner world, I mean your heart, your spirit, your will, developing that. And so one way you can tell is like if your circumstances are really good and you're happy, and happiness I define as a positive temporary feeling based on what's happening. Good circumstances, good feelings, happy. Bad circumstances, bad feelings, not happy. And so if you've got good circumstances and you've got good feelings, you can't really tell, am I living a meaningful, fulfilling life where I've got this deep contentment, joy, and confidence? It's in the hard times and we can tell what's in your heart. It's when everything is going wrong, there's chaos, and that's when we know. Um, you see, like just before we started, I asked you this question of what's been the most meaningful thing that helped you change your life, and one of the things you said was your ability to handle discomfort. Is that what? How did you word it?
Yeah, just to be able to handle sustained discomfort.
Yeah, I think that is so powerful. This is so true. Um, See, beliefs are what's running our lives. And I define beliefs, a belief as a subconscious comfort level with what you feel is possible and who you are, what's possible for you, who God is, what the universe is like. And this is what defines the story that you're creating. And inner excellence is about expanding what you believe is possible. And the way we do that is largely through feelings. So inner excellence is really about creating this, intentionally creating these habits of thought and action that get you into this flow of resonance and understanding what takes me away from that flow where I have this peace and confidence and what takes me out of it. And learning to come to that place where you're comfortable getting uncomfortable, practicing that, when you come to the edge of your feelings where you're like, "Oh, I'm not comfortable right now." That's where most people shrink back and don't achieve their potential. This is where the great ones have the courage to sit in that discomfort.
And one of the biggest problems I think is our mind can run wild during times of adversity and pressure. We develop anxiety, stress, fear. Like, what do you think is the best way to kill that voice of self-doubt and fear inside of our minds for good so that we can thrive under pressure.
Well, there's two things that come to mind. One is clarifying your life purpose, that you're not constantly thinking about what about this, what about that, because we've got so much information coming towards us. And then two is learning how to sit in that discomfort and embrace it, like you were able to change your life. So if we talk about the first one, your life purpose. So my life purpose is to share God's love, wisdom, and courage with athletes and leaders around the world, and with anyone I encounter. And so, if you don't have a clear life purpose, and most people do not, then you're going to really get going to be easily distractible. And oh, what about this? Or should I be doing that? And see, anxiety in general is a mind with too many thoughts or too many concerns. And if your purpose isn't clear for your life, you don't have your life summed up in one sentence, like, this is what I do, this is my mission, my purpose is, this is what's most important to me. Then it becomes easily distractible and frustratable. So we want to simplify our lives down to our clear purpose. And then there's the feelings and beliefs. This is really important is to, so say somebody has anxiety or they're anxious about some event, and maybe they're practicing for it. And so let's say they're a musician and they got a big concert coming up. Maybe they're a violinist who got a big performance coming up, and they're getting anxious because it's Carnegie Hall. And it's so important to understand that if you focus on trying to be perfect and not make mistakes, it's very, very stressful. If you're not willing to make mistakes, it's stressful because you're human and you're probably going to make mistakes. But if you're willing to make mistakes and fail and look foolish, then you've got freedom that you're going to need. Now, the problem is nobody wants to look foolish or fail. And that's because our deepest need is for unconditional love. And our greatest fear is rejection. And we've got an ego, always threatened, always comparing, never satisfied, that says, hey, you screw this up, you're going to fail, you're going to look foolish, you're going to get rejected. Your greatest desire to be fully loved and fully known is not going to happen. Your greatest fear is going to happen. So the ego leverages that against you. And so it's important to understand. And then now we want to get into those, embracing those feelings. And you can do that by asking yourself a few questions. Am I willing to face any fear? Or am I willing to face my fears? And am I willing to face any feeling? And am I willing to sit in that feeling even if it never goes away? Like that violinist, I could 2 minutes before I go on, I could be filled with fear. Are you willing to embrace that? Or are you going to run from it? And are you willing to have any feeling? So if that worst feeling comes, are you willing to have it? If you're not, now it's, you might panic, or, this is the problem we run into. But if you're willing to have those feelings, and you go looking for them and embrace them as your teacher, now we've got growth, we've got possibilities.
Right. And I think when you get into this conversation around purpose, like you said, that's one of the biggest things people can do to thrive under pressure. I know you talk about people playing the wrong game in life, which we've kind of alluded to at the beginning. Like, what do you think is the right game people should be playing? Like, I know it's easy to talk about things like purpose and stuff, but a lot of times that doesn't necessarily generate like money for people to live. It doesn't necessarily generate relationships. Like, there's some work involved.
We got to play the long game. And what I mean by that is we got to think about your whole life and what do I really want out of life? So I'll give you an example for me. I dreamed about being a superstar, and that was my huge dream. And when I lost it, I felt like I lost everything. And this is pretty common. So as humans, we have this picture in our mind and this vision. Okay, this is what I want my life to be like. And this is the path it should take. And this is the result I should get. And most of the time, that's not the best path. And that's not the best result for a person. But that's what we have in our mind. We have our path that we picture and our result that we think is best. But most of the time, it's not the best. And then when we come against a diversion, we resist it. This is part of the problem.
One of the things that people struggle with when it comes to overcoming adversity and doing the hard thing is confidence. They don't have the confidence to know that they can go through this thing. And I think a lot of it comes back to people's relationship with failure. How can people heal their relationship with failure so that they can become more confident with their situations moving forward when it comes to surviving hard times?
So now we're talking about mastering the ego. So, inner excellence, we're always defining terms, and I'm not saying these are the definitions. I'm just saying these are the terms, the way I define it in inner excellence. For example, ego is a part of our mind that we all have. That's always threatened, always comparing, never satisfied. And mastering the ego, inner excellence is really about mastering the ego. And when I think about mastering the ego, I think about three things: being unoffendable, unembarrassable, and unirritatable. And this is really not human nature. Human nature is self-centered that leads to fear. And so learning to master your egos is so crucial. Um, and there's many ways that we can work on that, but one of those is to recognize that, like, here's an example. I was um, the PGA Tour with a client on the PGA Tour playoffs, and he was playing $100 a birdie in a practice round against two other kind of up and coming stars, and my client was somewhat of a veteran. And so he really wanted to beat them, and they actually birdied the first two holes, and so now he's out $400, and the third hole, he's got a birdie shot, a birdie putt, and the other two didn't. And it was fairly short. I don't know what it was, maybe 6 feet, and he missed it. And, he said he was nervous, and I said, "You missed that because of your ego." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Would you have missed that on your home course by yourself?" He said, "Probably not." I said, "You missed it because you were thinking about them. What will they think if I missed? And I really want to beat them." You weren't present. You were concerned about outcomes and concerned about how you would look. That's ego. And so I said, what I do in those situations, if I think, "Oh, okay, is this ego? Am I concerned what people will think of me? And if I fail, etc." Then I remind myself, or ask myself rather, what do I want more? To master my ego or to be successful in this moment? Do I want to get better and have an amazing life and just learn and grow and can keep having more amazing experiences and expanding what I believe is possible, expanding my life? Or do I just want what I want right now? And so, with any wisdom at all, you realize, okay, I really want more than, yeah, I want to make this putt or whatever, make this basket. But what I really want is this amazing life. And I want to get better in mastering my ego. I don't want to be constantly threatened. And so, if you have that 5-foot putt and you're nervous and you ask yourself that, you say, actually, what I want more is to master my ego, even though I want to make this putt, I want even more to be better in these moments where I have more peace and joy and not stress. Then, if you make it, you make it. But if you miss, now you've got a real chance to work on the ego, that discomfort. And are you willing to be comfortable being uncomfortable right now? Can you embrace this uncomfortable feeling, which you said was one of the most important things that you were able to do to change your life? And I totally see that as well.
And I think this is a great framework for changing your relationship with failure, especially like moving forward. I think where people struggle is they've had like decades of failures that they have used as ways to damage their ego. What's a good reframe for people that have had a lot of failures in their life and their ego is already sunk?
There's two things. One, are you willing to let go of your past? And understand it's a really hard thing to do. And most people are not willing to let go of their past. And when I say let go of your past, I mean your past failures, your past weaknesses. Are you willing to let those go, or are you going to carry those with you your whole life? If you recognize that it's really hard to let go, and most people are not willing to, and all it takes is one thing, the main thing is courage, and anyone can have courage. Are you willing to let go of your past? Because interactions is about learning and growing. The best possible life is about learning and growing. It has one foot in joy and one foot in suffering. Are you willing to suffer? Or are you willing to be comfortable in really uncomfortable situations? And so that's the start.
And I think that people, they end up just lost in life, just riddled with anxiety in fear because they're not doing the work that we're talking about. What do you think is like the biggest belief that keeps people hopeless, lost, and anxious?
Well, as I am my past, that's the biggest belief that they have a hard time letting go. And I think it's also important to understand that that's really self-centeredness that's limiting them. And when you think, "Who am I to be great?" or imposter syndrome, those are self-centered thoughts. Imposter syndrome being, um, I'm not really what they think I am. I like they think I can do this, but I'm really a guy that's made a lot of mistakes, and I could really fail. I could fall flat on my face. They don't know how badly I could fall flat on my. This is the imposter syndrome. That's a result of self-centeredness. So humility, I define as an accurate view of self. It's not overinflated or underinflated. And when you're selfless, then you're fearless. If you're not selfless, then it's hard to be fearless. And so when we're constantly thinking about ourselves, we're going to have that fear. Oh, I hope I don't screw this up. I hope I don't miss this. It's the constant reference to self that's creating the problem. I was talking to a Major League Baseball All Star in spring training, April of 24. And I was saying in this inner excellence retreat that to me, I'm a performance coach. I teach people how to have peace and confidence under pressure and perform better. And um, so many pro athletes and Olympic athletes, they just want more confidence. That's one thing they really want. Confidence. And confidence is great, but there's something that's even more powerful and important than confidence, and that's presence. If you give me two people that have the same talent, one person is really confident, one person is really present, I'll take the present person every time.
I think that people have a hard time like staying present, like even in their day to day life, like forget being under pressure. Like, what are some of your tips to help people get better with remaining present in their lives?
Well, there's 4 daily goals, and so we wanna have a structure for your day, and so we wanna redefine success, take it off the outcome because there's way too much out of your control, whether you get this job or promotion or land this client, whatever it is, there's way too much out of your control, and so we need to focus on these 4 daily goals. Overall, the number 1 goal is to learn and grow, and within the 4 goals is 1 is to give the best of what you have, 2 is to be present, 3 is to be grateful, and 4 is to focus on your routines and only what you can control.
I think that one of the biggest things that I've even had trouble with in my life is like when you're in the midst of stress and chaos, like how can you take a step back and focus like on the bigger picture? Like what is the fastest way to go from like stress and chaos to peace and purpose?
So now we're talking about tools, what I call it tools. What do I do in the moment? I'm going on stage in 30 seconds. I'm gonna tee off in 5 minutes. What do I do right now? I'm really nervous. My heart's racing. What do I do right now? And so we would use a tool. For example, um, I think you had Andrew Huberman on your show, and he talks about what he calls a physiological sigh. I call it the double inhale. And so the double inhale is you take a long, slow, deep breath in through your nose, 90%, and then you add a little extra sniff at the end. So it's like a little longer inhale, but and then you exhale through your nose and then exhale longer than the inhale. Um, so doing a couple of those, that's a tool that you can use if your heart is racing or you're nervous.
And what do you think people do in that moment that feels normal to them that actually erodes at their ability to be mentally tough?
What do you mean feels natural?
Like that people do like just on a day-to-day basis without even realizing that it's hurting their ability to be resilient.
Well, one of the things I think that happens to people is they don't understand this whole selfless is fearless concept. It's not a Western culture thing. In Western culture, it's the opponent is the enemy. I got to crush them. And um, I've got to talk about how good I am because confidence is so important. So I think I should probably be cocky, this sort of thing. And, I learned a lot about performance from just studying Phil Jackson, basketball coach. His as a player, he said, my ego was out of control, and then as a coach, he started to learn how to master the ego, and that led to 11 rings. And so, I think about,
Book is on my is it on my shelf? It's right there, 11 rings. You can see like the orange.
yeah, yeah, Phil's the man. And so, opponent's not the enemy; they're a partner in the dance. And so, reorienting your life around instead of around outcomes and how you're going to be perceived, oriented around your energy and who you're becoming. This is the crucial difference.
What do you think you got wrong about success when you were chasing it playing baseball? Like, what do you think as you look back now was the biggest thing you got wrong?
Well, it was just this obsession with result. I just got to try harder, train harder to get better results, and just like the American way is, I just got to push harder if I'm not getting good results, and that's a big mistake. It's training hard is crucial, for sure. If you get someone who's very talented and trains really really hard, is the hardest worker, and they're very talented, now you got to watch out. Um, none of that matters in performance unless you can use it under pressure. Now we've got your heart and mind's going to come into play. And so understanding that your heart is the key to your life much more than your mind. And this is something that I never heard when I was young. It's like, what do you even mean by heart? So what I mean is your spirit or your will, the deepest part of you where your greatest fears are and greatest dreams are. This is where what you love most resides. And when you're squeezed, when you're under pressure, what's in your heart is going to come out. And so you could tell if you have false peace or real peace. Say, for example, you feel like, yeah, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm getting better, and become the person I'm meant to become, and now I'm more loving, I have more inner peace and inner strength. And then someone cuts you off in traffic. Like, I mean, if you're getting upset, that was in your heart, this response that reacted emotionally. Can you be someone who has, when they're squeezed under pressure, that is not an emotional response, that they use wisdom and inner strength and just choose the best course of action?
We talk a lot about habits on this show, and I know it's something that's really important to you as well. Regarding like setting yourself up for long-term success for dealing with things like pressure, anxiety, fear, stress, what are some of the best daily habits or even weekly habits that people can do to help them develop this bulletproof mindset?
Well, when I think of habits, I think like most people, I think of James Clear and Atomic Habits and what he learned from BJ Fogg. And Inner Excellence has 9 disciplines. And one of those disciplines is to deprive the appetites. And so it's this idea comes from a guy named Tyler Staton over at Bridgetown Church. There's a phrase that he used, and it's the deprivation of the appetites for the cultivation of the spiritual life. And so when I first heard that, I was like, wait a second, I need to rewind that. I rewound it about 5 times, and now it's one of the 9 inner excellence disciplines is to deprive the appetites. What I mean by that is we are, as humans, our natural tendency is pursuit of comfort. And if you constantly pursue comfort and say, for example, you get more good circumstances and you get the ability to be more comfortable, now you're on a very slippery slope towards anxiety, fear, and terrible physical health. If you want, like I said earlier, the best possible life has 1 foot in joy and 1 foot in suffering. Look at physical health. If you want to be physically strong, we need to break down the muscles. There's no other way. And so if you want to be mentally, emotionally strong, we need to do hard things. We need to, like you did, we need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And so to me, depriving the appetites, inner excellence discipline, means regularly doing hard things like cold plunge. This is a habit that's very powerful. It tells yourself, I'm not a slave to my feelings. I do hard things. When I do the cold plunge, I always tell myself this is the most important 5 minutes of my day. And that helps me get into the water. But you can also do the ice water face immersion. And that's also very powerful. It's way easier. I get actually more endorphins from that than I do from the cold plunge. And then it's just a matter of getting a bowl that you can put your whole face in and put some ice in it, and then stick your head in there for 30 to 60 seconds. Do it a couple times. So fasting is another example. And fasting, the idea of going without food, it's kind of become popular in the health industry the last few years. Whether it's going out without food for a full day, just having a window where you're only eating for 8 hours of the day, for example. Mm. But also a big one is understanding that the number one goal, if you want to live an extraordinary life, is to learn and grow. And anything that prevents this growth is some sort of an addiction. And I think the number one right now is the phone. So can you go without the phone for parts of your day?
You brought up an interesting point that I've thought about a lot, and that's like this planned discomfort. And I think about planned discomfort versus unplanned, and it's like which one leads to more growth. I think in my life, and I would argue maybe like in the experience of others that I've interviewed or talked to, I think it's the unplanned discomfort that leads to more growth because it's like real life. Like, it's easy to get in the cold plunge and do all the things when life is good and meditate. But what counts is like when life slaps you in the face. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand that say your life is going good. Well, human life cycle is going good today, but tomorrow there could be trauma. And so we always want to prepare for those moments that are going to be really, really difficult. And the way you prepare is you do these hard things. And so, yeah, the hardest part of life is the unexpected, unwanted things that happen every day. And the greater the unexpected, unwanted thing, the harder it is. So we always want to prepare for that. And that's why, I talk in Air Excellence, I talk about the samurai being prepared to die every single day. That's the most powerful way to live. And so the way I think about that idea is I always want to be in a moment's notice every single day. How I want to live is I want to be at a moment's notice, ready to fully live or give up my life physically any moment. This is how I want to live. I don't know if I've ever achieved that, but what I mean by fully live in a moment is I want to capture wisdom, for example, whether it's from an 8-year-old or a homeless person or an 88-year-old or anybody. I want to recognize beauty and wisdom. And I also want to be able to give up my life. Like, for example, in America, active shooter is a term that's all too common. And I want to be someone that doesn't run from the situation, but tries to stop the situation, if at all possible. And when you're willing to give up your life, then you can be fearless.
And that comes down to belief, right? And value and moral compass for whatever people have. And I think that takes time to train. Like, how can people retrain their belief system if their beliefs about what life is supposed to be about have been wrong for so long?
Well, one of the inner excellence disciplines is to fuel your soul, fuel your heart and soul. And what I mean by that is you're fueling it every day, no matter what you do. It's just what are you fueling it with? And when I say fueling your heart and soul, it's what are you reading, watching, listening to? What's your environment like? What are you seeing every day? And um, who are you spending time with? And you can think about it. Like, for example, a few weeks ago, I wrote in my journal, what is God telling me right now? And um, the answer was, your phone has captured your imagination. And I was like, ooh, that's for goodness. And then a week later, I asked that same question, what is God telling you right now? And then I was like, thought about it deeply, and I thought I wrote down this phrase, kind of a odd phrase, but it's what came to mind. It said, "The phone is tumbling your heart. Your phone is tumbling your heart." I'm like, "What does that mean?" And that's what if to me, it's like my phone has captured my imagination and it's grabbed my heart and it's taken control. In other words, what I dream about, what I want for inner excellence, and this is kind of the pursuit of inner excellence is when you come to the solitary moments in your life that you connect with beauty and freedom and joy, and you have the sense that anything's possible. And too many times in my life lately, because my life changed a lot in the last few months. And so now I have a social media team and I'm on social media so much more than I ever was. And so now I'm on this phone so much. I've been on the phone a lot. And so it's captured my mind in a way that's very dangerous because I want to be able to make a difference in the world and to think beautiful thoughts and share God's love, wisdom, and courage with the world. And I can't do that if I'm constantly getting in my mind negative limiting thoughts.
And those are all coming from social media, or are they coming from just your relationship with this new version of you?
Yes, yeah, good point. My life is very different. So, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's the phone's fault. It's like when I think about this phrase that I first heard from John Ortberg called hurry sickness. And is this idea that I've had that where I wasn't in a hurry, but hurry was in me. And what John said was that I thought was so powerful is that when you have this hurry, that it's not this hurry sickness is not a disordered schedule; it's a disordered heart, and that's what I think has happened to me in these last few months. Is that I've gotten a disordered heart, and but this is how life is. You know, we get off track, and we just got to remember our purpose and what is my foundation. We bring ourselves back, and I think I've gotten a bit off track with so much information in my head, and a lot of it's not empowering. Most of it not empowering, and that creates anxiety. It creates negativity and all these things. And so um, that's why it's so important for me now, today, to make sure I take back my time and my heart, especially like I'm gonna live a certain way, even though my life has all these different things, amazing things that are part of it. My energy is a crucial thing. And am I going to walk in love or fear, gratitude or entitlement? This is where the importance lies.
So what are you doing now, like, to bring yourself back to center, to not let this disordered heart get worse?
Well, the first thing is, so I have this part of my routine is my it's, I've had a bit of a my life's been very different. I mean, I flew in from Madrid last week, and then I flew to Seattle, then to San Diego. Now I'm in LA, and I fly to New York on Friday. And so travel has been there's a lot more city to city travel for me, and so then it's harder to do the routines. And so, like normally my routine in the morning, I will have done a bunch of things that I haven't done yet. I haven't done the ice bucket is waiting there. It's probably limited by now. I was sitting waiting there for a few hours. So I got to do my ice water immersion after this. And then the number one thing is for me, my most important is my 10 to 20 minutes where I sit alone, my time with God, put on my countdown timer. So I make sure it's counting down from 20 or 10 minutes. So I don't have to look at it again. I'm not going to think about the clock or time until the alarm goes off. And I put on the music that's connected to my purpose and my values. And then I'm just going to sit there absorbing God's love. This is what I'm going to do afterwards that I haven't done yet. And this is a foundational um, uh, exercise or habit for me because, like I said, what's our greatest need is love. If I go out into the world and I don't feel that love, what am I going to do? And spend all day trying to get that love. I'm going to try and maybe I gotta say the right things to Doug. So people, so he thinks I'm great. And so the listener's gonna be like, oh, he's pretty cool. And so, but then I'm never who I can be if I'm trying to get people to think good about me.
And how are you staying present with yourself, knowing what you know about your relationship to success when you played baseball? Like, are you thinking about that a lot with what's going on with you now, or are you kind of using other tools like what you just described to keep you like focused and centered when you have to course correct?
Well, I know I'm not sure if this is exactly the answer to your question, but I know that anything, impact that I've had on someone's heart is the greatest. If it's a positive impact on someone's heart, it's the greatest thing that I could do. And if I've been a part of anything that's been good like that, I know that it's not me. And so, and I also know that self-centeredness is my biggest challenge. And it was a big challenge before January 12th. Just ask anyone that knows me. Now it's 10 times the challenge because I just have a lot more people that, you know, request my time. And so, I know that this is the biggest challenge that I have is this self-centeredness. And so that's why I having this understanding. Well, here's something that I think is that's so important. I told you that the best possible life has one foot in joy and one foot in suffering. So there's many aspects to that. Suffering is part of that is placing yourself in proximity with people who are lacking resources. If you're not in proximity to people that are lacking and you have resources and they don't, um, or the flip side is if you do put yourself in proximity, then you're going to be able to stay more present, more grounded, more focused. Just think about I always think about the Haiti earthquake 10 years ago or so. If you're there digging people out of the rubble, are you concerned like what you're wearing? What do people think about me? There's no self-consciousness, right? You're single-minded. I'm gonna, see if I can save somebody, and that's the power of weakness and vulnerability and suffering. It creates a love that's unavailable in other ways.
Shifting gears a little bit, you've coached, a lot of very successful people from all walks of life, different sports, different careers, etc. What do you think is the biggest like belief about themselves that they had to unlearn before they broke through?
Well, I think the biggest difference between the people that have been extraordinarily successful and those who are not is courage. And they had to learn a relationship with failure. They have to develop some sort of a relationship with it where they can be resilient. And so it's a pretty, in my mind, a pretty basic, simple cycle. As humans, our deepest need is for love and connection. And if we fail, if we try something and we don't succeed, then we're going to feel like a failure and we're going to feel unlovable. Like our worth goes up when we perform well, goes down when we perform poorly. This is kind of the basic assumption that as humans we go through, and it's this illusion that is very problematic. Most people have this spend time in this illusion their whole lives. They just keep chasing more success to feel better, and they're only getting temporary feelings. And the problem is the feelings that they're getting is less and less for the pursuit. Like the fulfillment never matches the craving. Craving is always the craving increases, the fulfillment decreases in this empty pursuit of achievement.
Is there anything else that you would like to add that we haven't covered with regards to helping people like redefine their relationship with failure, helping themselves not feel lost, miserable, or anxious, like how they deal with pressure, like along those themes? Anything else you'd like to add that we didn't cover?
Yeah, I think it's just the most important thing is to understand that there's hope. I think there's a lot of people that are really suffering and really afraid right now. There's so much out of our control, and the world is a scary place. And say, look, you don't have to change the world or change your life tomorrow. Let's just do one thing, one little thing. What's the smallest thing that you can do today to move in the right direction? And that's the most powerful thing that you can do.
Well, Jim, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. If people want to learn more about your work, if they want to buy Inner Excellence, where's the best place to do all that?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So you can get Inner Excellence at most places where books are sold. If you go to innerexcellence.com, you can sign up for my newsletter, which will be on Substack soon. and Inner Excellence. Jim Murphy is my Instagram. I'm also on other social media channels. And Facebook, we have a group. So
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I think my audience could get a ton of value out of this conversation.
yeah, great questions, Doug. I really appreciated hanging out with you.
You got it, man. Likewise.